Pipeline the Surf Coaster at Seaworld Orlando is the prototype surf coaster. This B&M creation is the next generation stand-up coaster where riders stand up instead of sitting down. On the surface, that might scare off riders due to stand-up coasters being uncomfortable and causing pain to riders, especially if you're a male. However, Pipeline surprisingly is a great coaster with the weirdest standing airtime I've ever felt. In this video, I will review Pipeline the Surf Coaster and explain why this is a great coaster. Stand-up coasters for B&M go back to when they worked with Giovanola. In the 80s, B&M under Giovanola worked with Intamin to create the Intamin stand-up coaster, mainly Shockwave for Six Flags. This Intamin stand-up coaster has a single vertical loop followed by several turns while standing up. So when B&M formed their own company and Six Flags contacted them for a new coaster, they built their own stand-up coaster, Iron Wolf at Illinois Six Flags Great America. B&M produced a total of 7 stand-up coasters in the 90s before being abandoned altogether. The reason stand-ups stopped showing up after the 90s is pretty simple. Nobody likes standing up on a coaster. The issue is that the stand-up trains cause massive head banging, tiredness in the legs, and if you're a guy, crush your nuts into oblivion. This means riding an old school stand-up coaster is the equivalent of having a Florida man smack full force into your groin with a You feel like you're in the 8th circle of hell, so B&M redesigned the stand-up trains into what they call the surf coaster. And Seaworld Orlando was the first to bite the bullet with Pipeline. Pipeline the Surf Coaster is the prototype B&M surf coaster. The coaster stands 110 feet, 34 meters tall, with a top speed of 60 miles per hour or 97 kilometers per hour, and traverses 2,950 feet, 900 meters of track. At the beginning of this video, I said Pipeline is a genuinely good ride. Now, if stand-ups are so hated, what did they do differently with Pipeline? Well, there are 3 key differences between this and the old stand-ups. The first is the vest restraints. Now, B&M vest restraints are generally criticized a lot for how they tightly press against the shoulder area. And yes, Pipeline does have that issue, which I'll go further into later in this video. However, the key advantage is that head banging is no longer possible. This means you can't get a headache from the Pipeline as opposed to something like Iron Wolf where riders are slamming into the over-the-shoulder restraints. The second key change is the bouncing feature. The surf coaster trains have a bouncing mechanism that allows the body areas where the rider's torsos are to move up and down. This is arguably the biggest positive changes because it fixes 2 key areas. For one, your legs are given a lot more freedom to stretch, so your legs have less of a chance to lock up. The other positive of the bouncing feature is that due to the design, your nuts will not smack into the bike seat, so the ride experience will not feel like someone is shooting paintballs into your groin. The bouncing feature also has the extra advantage of providing airtime. That is something not possible with the old stand-up trains, and this is evident with the layout. Pipeline the Surf Coaster is mostly an airtime focused coaster with little positive G-forces. This is, in my opinion, a good thing since most of us love airtime, and the positive G's is what causes the legs to cramp up. Now, Pipeline makes a great first impression. The blue track is visible in both the parking lot and the front entrance. Then the plaza is well presented as a beach as the coaster is themed to surfing. Now, waiting in line for Pipeline sucks balls because the queue line lacks shade. So if you go on the wrong day, you'll be baking like you're stuck in traffic inside a crappy car with no AC. Luckily, the queue line is, for the most part, usually on the shorter side, especially midday. What helps is that the operations is faster than the old stand-ups. Granted, dealing with SeaWorld, the operations still suck, but they are much faster here as the restraint checks are simplified. The ride begins with the LSM launch. Yes, Pipeline is a launch coaster, one of only a few launch coasters B&M ever produced. This launch starts at a standstill, so the acceleration has a decent kick. The launch is not the best, but it's far from the worst. This launch actually has a bit of force to it. But the best part of this launch is that it goes over a small speed hill. When you traverse this tiny hill, the bouncing feature causes your feet to lift off the floor. This results in weird airtime where you feel like you're floating. Now, all of the airtime here is floater, but it's just surreal getting literal standing airtime like this. The first large element is this overbank turn. Now, if you saw my other reviews, you know that I hate overbanks due to the lack of force. And this, for the most part rides the same, but the exit has a faint float to it. Luckily, this is the warm-up, as the next element is the best element on the pipeline in this twisted camelback. This large hill embodies everything right with pipeline. This hill lifts you off the ground for several seconds. Even though it's floater, it gracefully lifts you up out of the floor, and since it's twisted, there's a kick of laterals to it. And this is by design. How airtime works on this coaster is that when you start to rise up a hill, the bouncing quickly lifts the riders up. However, during the descent, riders slowly lower to the ground. This is for two reasons. The first is that it extends the duration of the airtime. Second, this gives riders more time to position themselves when they land at the bottom. This is important because if you're positioned wrong, the landing can cause discomfort in the rider's legs. So it matters that during the airtime, you position your legs in a way that it doesn't cause discomfort. Next is the lone inversion of pipeline, a corkscrew. And it's fine. This corkscrew offers no whip, laterals, or hang time. Heck, this corkscrew doesn't fully utilize the stand-up trains as you barely lift off the floor. I wish this corkscrew was instead a 0G roll due to the higher center of gravity. The good news is that pipeline returns to greatness with a smaller airtime hill. You quickly rise off the floor into the air in a sustained manner. Now there is a trim right before this hill, but the floater still hits. It's just not as sustained as the camelback due to the smaller size. At the apex, the hill transitions into a series of low banking turns. These turns offer light positives and laterals. That's fine, since the forces can't be too high to avoid causing stress to the legs. What you will notice, however, is a mid-rattle. Yes, this coaster has quite the shake to it the entire ride. This rattle isn't enough to hurt the overall ride experience, but you will notice it, and it will make it harder to marathon it. The shake could possibly come from the coaster being a prototype and the fact stand-up trains have a higher center of gravity. On top of that, B&M has recently been having issues with quality control with tracks and trains, considering other B&Ms built around the same time also have problems with roughness. And yes, that includes the other B&M built at Seaworld the year later in Penguin Trek. After a couple of turns is an elongated bunny hill. This bunny hill once again delivers the floater standing airtime, but now the airtime is sustained longer as a result of the airtime hill being elongated. You traverse a couple more shaky low turns before going over one last element, a twisted speed hill. While the airtime isn't as sustained, because the hill is twisted, there are strong laterals to this hill, and because of how small and sudden this hill is, the airtime by far is the most violent. Finally, you hit the brakes, completing 2,950 feet, 900 meters of track. But one thing you'll notice when you hit the brakes is how tightly the vest restraints presses your collarbone. It's a little uncomfortable because of how tightly the vest presses on you. Luckily, by then the ride is already over. My solution here is to push the vest forward to relieve some stress. And if your legs somehow got sore, you can sit on the bike seat now. On the surface, Pipeline the Surf Coaster seems like a flawed and poorly executed coaster. If this thing had sit-down trains, the coaster would be mediocre at best, as the layout in general is nothing special. It's the surf coaster trains that make Pipeline special. The trains result in one of the most unique forms of negative G's, and the surfing fits well as the trains simulate surfing. It works since I can't surf for crap. Really, the biggest issues is some of the comfort issues from the vest, roughness, and landing, but they're not necessarily a deal breaker. Especially with the vest and landing, most of you guys would rather deal with that over headaches and leg cramps. With that being said though, that can still happen if you try to marathon it. So what would I rate Pipeline the Surf Coaster? Considering this is a prototype, I give it an 85 out of 100. B&M did a great job revamping the surf coaster for a new audience. Pipeline does everything no other stand-up coaster was fully capable of doing while being comfortable. That is why it is universally considered the best stand-up coaster. I'm very interested to see B&M make another surf coaster of larger scale. As for where it ranks in SeaWorld's lineup, I'm actually not too sure. After Mako, there's a 4-way tie between this, Manta, Kraken, and Icebreaker for second place. So it's a little unclear where Pipeline stands in my rankings. That should tell you how good SeaWorld's top 5 is. So that is my review of Pipeline the Surf Coaster. If you liked this video, which you probably did, so I'd suggest pressing the like button. Also, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. That way, you'll be alerted the next time I upload a video. Finally, more videos should pop out for you to watch right now. This is the Coaster Flood, riding out.